Hi, I'm Roger Aguinaldo, and welcome to the M&A Advisor podcast. Since 1998, the M&A Advisor has been the definitive source dedicated to recognizing achievement, delivering unrivaled thought leadership, and connecting the world's mergers and acquisitions elite. We help you sharpen your edge and accelerate your success in deal making. Whether you're an ambitious new player or a market veteran, this podcast provides masterclass strategies, unvarnished stories, and vital lessons from the industry's influential figures. Before we launch into this episode, be sure to follow us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and subscribe to our essential M&A Alerts email newsletter. Find all the links below. Your engagement fuels the deal-making community. Now let's get into the transaction.
So I'm Shawn Whiteside. I was asked to come up here and share the stage with this excellent gentleman about some important topics, cross-border deal making. So I got a few questions lined up, and this will be more of a conversational flow. But you know, we live in a dynamic world right now, where things constantly shift. The dynamics, whether it's political, whether it's regulatory environments, or just risk in general, they shift quite often. So kind of want to open the frame here, or rather acknowledge that cross-border deal making has not slowed down. Rather, it's those organizations who are coming to the table with the ability to understand the risk, whether it's politics, whether it's the financial standpoint, and so forth. But we'd love to hear your expertise. I know the room does as well. So we'll start with kind of going macro and work our way down to the micro levels. But which cross-border corridors remain the most active, and why?
Well, we're going to talk about cross-border, but I'm going to talk about the U.S. a lot as part of that, because I've been an investment banker for about 35 years. And the greatest surprise to me, consistent surprise that I keep learning again and again over those 35 years, is something about the kind of tenacity and resilience of the United States. And even though politics feels pretty hair-raising to me sitting in New York today, being, I would think, unshockable, age 57. But politics does seem quite hectic in this country, but that hasn't discouraged foreign bidders. And when I travel, I have an Asia-focused firm. We have about 110 bankers spread through 9 offices in the world, most of those offices in Asia. And when I travel around the world, I'm just always impressed by the extent to which people want exposure to the United States. So what does that mean? That means there are increasingly sophisticated foreign bidders for even the lower middle market businesses that would, well, maybe not. Maybe those guys aren't coming to buy plumbers in Wichita, but actually they'll come down surprisingly far. So you're getting increasingly sophisticated, aggressive Asian bidders who want to participate in the US, who are excited by the innovations around technology and service provision in all the different ways that exist. You know, this market is such a bellwether, such a leader for the world that people want to be here. So I think for us, you know, in my firm, we're just excited by how much appeal there is in U.S. M&A. And what that means for the people in this room is you should be more open to international buyers for businesses that you're selling. There's going to be a lot.
Excellent point, and it's my understanding that the U.S. to Southeast Asia corridor is growing, and it's essentially due to the diversification of the global supply chain. Excellent. The last 2 years, what has surprised you the most about cross-border deal making?
Well, I think that's right. I think, look, for many years, China was, you know, our Shanghai office was our busiest and most successful office, and in the same way that the U.S. keeps surprising me by how much optimism there is around this market and around this economy, frankly speaking, we've been pretty disappointed by the role of China in the world. And I think, you know, increasingly, whether it's in Europe or particularly in the U.S., I think it's very, very difficult for Chinese participants to play. Ironically, that's a source of deal flow in itself. Chinese guys struggle to buy businesses in the U.S., but they want to expand globally. So we're seeing enthusiasm from Chinese bidders, but frustration that they struggle to get a good reception anywhere in the world. At the same time, we're seeing Japanese and Indian bidders specifically who are keen to buy globally, who are more aggressive globally, and who are just will get more done. They've got access to capital and the wherewithal to move a bit quicker, to be a bit more flexible than they were 10 years ago. So I think there's going to be Japan and India, but you're right, also Southeast Asia, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, and for sure Europeans who want exposure to this market.
So with that, what regions do you think that U.S. buyers are still misunderstanding or underestimating?
Well, I think the flip side is that U.S., if you have a board of directors in the U.S., the easiest thing for an independent director to do, it's almost required for that independent director to say, hold on, what are we still doing in China? We shouldn't be there. Hold on, what are we doing in Eastern Europe? There's a war going on in Russia. That could get worse. Again, just in the same way that foreign bidders are enthusiastic about coming to the U.S., I think many mid-sized U.S. companies are pretty scared about all of the instability and perceived risks outside this country. I think there are pockets, for us, the most active flow of business we see today is between India and the US, and we see private equity firms, including US private equity firms, who are super excited about companies that have India cost-based US revenues. There's a kind of magic confluence if you can have relatively cheap, highly educated, good quality software programmers in Bangalore providing services to U.S. companies, whether they be in the insurance space or the healthcare industry or the retail industry, all of those different things in the U.S. that need more and more tech services provided to them. We're just seeing an awful lot there, and that's been a pretty lucrative flow of business. So I think that kind of India-U.S. corridor is going to be particularly hot. And what I want to argue is that even U.S. private equity firms are very comfortable investing at both sides of that to bring together good Indian companies and good U.S. companies.
So with that, talking about, you've heard India, we've talked about not just Southeast Asia, but East Asia in general, we talked about Europe. What are deal teams still getting wrong about post-close integration across these borders?
Look, I think I like to think I can help put deals together. Bluntly speaking, as a banker, we collect a success fee when the deal closes, and we're thrilled. You work hard for 6 or 12 months to try and get a deal done. I think there are huge cultural gaps still. And I think to some extent it's getting easier because you've got a lot of management teams in foreign companies who have been Western educated now, who've had some of their education in the US. And to the extent I see big family groups in Asia, they've been sending their kids to study in the US for 20 years or whatever. So a lot of those groups are beginning to navigate the culture gap better. But I think there's still obviously a regulatory gap and a culture gap. And I think it's a bit self-serving to say that in an M&A advisor conference, but my advice to Asian companies or European companies who are coming this way is make sure you hire the right advisors. I know you coach managers and senior executives. They need everything from executive coaches to help navigating the insurance, the regulatory, the PR risk, all of these different things. And I think still today, actually, it's a reason that the U.S. M&A market is the most attractive in the world. I say that as a cross-border banker. American companies are smart enough to recognize that hiring and paying for professional help in all of the ways you can do it, whether it's insurance advisory or environmental diligence or whatever it might be, spending that money is usually well spent. Even if it's a lot of money, it protects you, it helps you have better outcomes for your M&A deals and your businesses. I think foreign companies will often have a more a kind of budget focus. They'll say, why do I need to hire all these different advisors? I want to buy the business, and then I'm smart enough to run that business myself once I know how, once I own it. That's a recipe for disaster.
I could not agree more. You mentioned that I coach, and you're right. Some of the conversations I've had post-close with integration deals heavily in the culture aspect. And it's when the teams don't align or understand the difference in the culture, the smallest things matter to some people more than the other side may understand. And that can lead to complete loss. It not only impacts the post-close integration, but it impacts the bottom line in ways that many people don't foresee.
I think we live in a difficult world, and people want a sense of reassurance. And, I know I wrestle with that, right? On one level, we go to work to get paid, and we have our families and our homes and our friends, which are different. But I think we would probably all prefer to work in an environment where you feel some kind of camaraderie with your colleagues. And of course, in cross-border, that can be delicate, because as simple a thing as, a new manager coming in from Korea, and they have just very different experience of holiday schedules and how life works. I did a deal once which was a Japanese company buying a laser print, some kind of ink materials business in Pennsylvania. And this Pennsylvania company, the whole company took the day off, the first day of hunting season. They'd all go hunting. And the Japanese guys are like, what the hell's going on? Why does a whole company want a day off to go and try and shoot animals? It was just a massive, massive culture gap. And it's kind of fun. That's part of the fun of our job, is to try to bring those cultures together. But I think that, in cross-border stuff, sometimes we can be a little arrogant or overconfident here in this country, because we think, we speak English, and most of the world now more or less knows how to speak English. So, we can talk to each other and more or less get along. That doesn't tell the whole story by any means. And anyone, whether you're the target or the acquirer, you better try and figure out what the culture of the other side is and where you can meet sensibly and productively in the middle. When it works, it's wonderful, but when it goes wrong, it's a instant value destroyer.
I think you're 100% right. So we spoke about leadership and the post-close integration. What structural trend do you see changing, or maybe it's underutilized now, but will be important going forward in cross-border markets?
Well, I think for both sides, you'll hear this from every banker in the world, and actually the previous panel talked about it, that before you do an M&A deal, you need to prepare. That means hiring the right advisors. It means thinking about what you can realistically achieve. It means being ready for some hiccups as the deal's being negotiated, for sure, and certainly after the deal's done. And I think it's hard for entrepreneurs or business leaders who've run a business for a long time. Then they're part of an M&A deal, and suddenly they're giving up some control. I think we all need to learn a little bit of cultural fluency or cultural sensitivity. And we live in a pretty bombastic world. The politics, cable news is telling us, go hard charging, and crypto is where it's at, or there's all this kind of very kinetic enthusiasm. There's sort of a revival of the aggressive American attitude, and I think without delving too far into politics, I think we all benefit where we remember to be a little bit sensitive and learn how to listen and receive advice.
That's great advice. So cross-border, going back to the cultures a little bit and the difficulties in leadership, one, I firmly believe that leadership should be priced in the valuation of a company. And in particular, when you're dealing cross-border with all the different ways that business is done, where some value stability over speed, others value speed over stability, they want the deal to happen immediately. But where do you see, or where have you seen, a disconnect between the boards and the frontline teams leading the global deals?
So I think foreign acquirers in the U.S. typically bring a couple of people from head office into the US, and those people can be very isolated. Everybody in the plant or the US headquarters is scared of the Koreans or the Japanese or the Indians or whoever it is who's showing up to try and help run the business or oversee the business. And again, I think in practical terms, good participants, whether the acquiring or the acquired company, need to be quite aware of that in advance and try and figure out how to, maybe part of it is leaving, just as I'm asking Americans to be more sensitive to cultural nuance, I'm also asking foreign acquirers to be aware that there's a reason that the target company has done things a certain way for a long time. And, if you get it right, planning in advance, dividing the risk, carving up the risk, but carving up the responsibilities as well before the deal, then that can be helpful in terms of minimizing the scope for chaos afterwards.
You said a very important thing there, that a lot of times the acquiring company may not fully grasp what the acquired company built. Right. They understand EBITDA, they understand the financial piece of what they're buying, but going back to that culture, they built that company successfully in a certain way, and sometimes the acquirer will come in and disrupt that to the detriment of that. But so you and I think we're out of time.
Seemed a bit quick. I hope it wasn't too boring. Thanks very much. Hope everybody has a great conference. Thank you, Shawn.
Thank you, Euan.
Really fun.
We hope today's episode delivered actionable intelligence. We want to hear from the field. Share your questions or insights, leave a message on your favorite platform, or email us at editor@maadvisor.com. To secure your steady feed of premium M&A content, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and subscribe to our M&A Alerts email newsletter. Find the links in the description below or visit us directly at our website at www.maadvisor.com. I'm Roger Aguinaldo, founder and CEO of the M&A Advisor. Thank you for being part of the M&A Advisor community. Until next time, stay decisive, stay connected, and happy dealing.